The Top Floor Please podcast, where women in leadership rise together. I'm your host, Melissa McCormick, executive coach and founder of the Grace and Salt Leadership Academy. This is your space to find clarity, grow in confidence, and lead with bold authenticity. Whether you're navigating the boardroom, building your team, or stepping into new territory, you're not alone. Let's talk real challenges, real growth, and real leadership because the top floor isn't just a place, it's a mindset. Alrighty then, let's get started. Hey, I'm just hopping in here to give you a little heads up. The podcast you're about to listen to, the audio is a little funky, and I know it, but I didn't want to re-record it because I thought it went really, really well. So hopefully you will forgive me and give me some grace when it comes to the audio, but I do know it, and I will get a new speaker, a new microphone, so we don't have this problem in the future. Thanks so much. Enjoy.
All right. So I just have a question as we start. Why is it that when you have either a cord, like hypothetically, to my microphone or purse, like I don't put it over my shoulder and I'm just holding my purse, why is it that the strap will hang on behind the doorknob and so then it pulls you back? Or in this case, I was putting my microphone on, and the cord decided to wrap around the button of the jacket. And I just wonder, how does that happen? I might have to do a deep dive and find a leadership lesson in there somewhere, but why does that happen? Today, we are going to talk about confidence. It's one of the most talked about leadership qualities and one of the most understood. When people ask me, so Melissa, what do you do? And it depends on who I'm talking to, but I typically will say, well, I'm a confidence coach. I help women grow confidence and influence, and that's what I love to do. So we're going to talk about confidence today. And many times people assume that confidence means being the loudest voice in the room, right? The biggest personality in the room, having all of the answers. Maybe it's dominating conversations, never showing fear. Is any one of these resonating with you? But I'm going to tell you something. True leadership, confidence, none of those things. None of those things. Confidence is not arrogant. It is not about ego. And it's certainly not pretending to be someone you're not. Real confidence is self-trust. This is a tough one. It is a tough one for me too. It's ability to trust your judgment, right? To communicate clearly and lead. Communicate clearly just kind of cracks, because I'm sure everybody listening to this podcast has or is involved in a relationship with AI, right? You've got a relationship. I do. His name is Edgar, and he's on my staff. So Sarah and I talk about Edgar all the time. And today I got in a fight with him. So no, I tried to be respectful, but I was really irritated. I didn't communicating properly. Years ago, I was part of a training and facilitator had us all and put neckties, like a man's necktie, around our neck, and then one person was blindfolded. And to describe the person who was not, to describe how to tie the tie. The blindfolded person could tie the tie correctly. It was so incredibly difficult, but that's the way I today when I was in my little argument with a bot, which then I started absolutely ridiculous. Can't believe what was going on in this world. But getting clear, really, really, really at top of mind. Confidence is the ability to trust your judgment, to communicate clearly, and lead, right? You're leading from the front, not leading from behind, although you're leading to listen, right? That means that even when you don't have the answer, most importantly, confidence also requires courage, right? It's willingness to be vulnerable. It's that willingness to step forward It's that willingness to speak before you even know that what you're about to say is right. It's that feeling in your gut where you're like, I know I need to speak up, but I don't want to sound like an idiot. I don't want to sound stupid. I don't want people to think, oh, she doesn't really know what's going on. One of my favorite authors, Brene Brown, right? She says this about vulnerability because that's what we need in order to be courageous and in order to build confidence. She says that vulnerability is not winning or losing. It's having the courage to show up when you can't control the outcome. That's leadership. Because true confidence is not about control. It's about courageous self-trust. So if you want to write that into the dictionary, right? Melissa says courage and confidence is about courageous self-trust. So today we're going to unpack why confidence changes how people follow you and why understanding what confidence truly is may be one of the most important leadership shifts that you'll ever make. Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to the Top Floor Please podcast. This is the podcast for leaders who are ready to get out of the weeds. They want to strengthen their influence and lead with greater clarity, confidence, and strategic intention. I'm Melissa McCormick. I'm an executive coach, speaker, author, and I love everything leadership. I help leaders simplify their leadership. I help them communicate with greater impact and build the confidence required to lead at all levels. Because I believe we should be developing people at all levels, whether they are entry level or whether they are executive. Now, what confidence actually is and what it is absolutely not, that's where we're going to start today. We're going to start with that foundation. Okay, so let's dig in. All right, so what is confidence? Well, at its core, as I mentioned before, confidence is self-trust. It's trusting your voice. It's trusting that you're prepared. It's trusting. It's trusting your ability to navigate uncertainty. It's your capacity to recover when things don't go perfectly. I'll give you an example that happened to me this week. I had a client call, a potential. This is not somebody who I've worked with in the past. I really would love to have this account, and I went into it fairly confident, not super confident, fairly confident. I walked out of it with I hadn't thought about everything that I should have thought about before I went into it. And that's what I mean, it was like practice what you preach, Melissa, because that's what I do, right? I love anticipation. Like that's anticipation, preparation, all of those things are required before you go into one of these conversations. I didn't practice what I preach. I didn't prepare as much as I should have. And so I had to recover, and I did recover, and it's going to turn out better than ever. But confidence is all about that self-trust. It's saying I trust myself enough to lead, and when I stumble, I'm going to get back up, and I'm going to straighten things out, and I'm going to move forward. Right? It doesn't mean that you know everything, and that's what happened to me. My client had said, hey, what about this? Or my potential client had said, hey, what about this? Like, oh my gosh, why didn't I see that? Why didn't I think about that? So it means that you believe you can figure things out, believe that you can adapt, and believe that you'll continue moving forward, which is what you need to do, right? Those are confident leaders. That's what they speak with clarity. They make decisions. They hold boundaries. They stay grounded under pressure. That's a tough one. And they recover from setbacks. I want you to think about somebody in your world who fits that description. Do you know of a confident leader? Excuse me. You know I love my tea. But do you know of somebody who said those things? I'm going to say them again. Do you know of someone? I want you to think about who this person, and it could be you, right? But who is this person? They speak with clarity. They make decisions. They hold boundaries. They stay grounded under pressure. They recover from setbacks. And most importantly, they're willing to be vulnerable. Who do you know like that? And if you don't, how can you become that? Right? What does that look like? They're going to ask questions. They're going to admit mistakes. They remain teachable. Vulnerability is not weakness. It's courage in action. Right? It's not weakness. It's courage in action. So that's what confidence is in a nutshell. What is it not? I wanted to go into this understanding what is it and what isn't it, because I think that's always very important whenever we're talking about leadership and we're trying to uncover a new qualification or skill. I always want to know what is it and what is it not. So we're going to kind of transition a little bit into, well, what isn't it, right? I want to clear something up. It is not arrogance, okay? It is not. The confident person in the room is not that arrogant person who walks through the door in your meeting room or shows up on your Zoom meeting and, has that I know better than everyone kind of attitude, or they don't need input. Like maybe their idea isn't spot on, and so you say something and then they come back at you like, that was stupid. Of course I thought of that, and that would never work, right? Those types of things. You want somebody who can listen. Confidence does not show up that way. It does not show up with somebody saying, oh, I have, right? Confidence says, I know my value, I'm willing to listen, and I can lead without shrinking. So if somebody comes after me, you're in a meeting, let's just hypothetically say you're in a meeting, and this overbearing, overpowering personality in the room makes some statement and you want to rebut. You're like, I don't understand that. And so you make a comment and then they come after you. Like they come, right? Because they're defending their territory. They're defending their honor. That's the way it seems. And you just kind of go, okay, whatever. I'm just going to sit here and get through the meeting. That is not confidence. That is not confidence showing up. Now, I'm not saying you do this. I'm not saying that in a meeting you're going to do this. You are going to be professional. But as that person comes after you to defend their honor, you can say, hey, no, I get it. I'm just curious, right? Go in with the posture of curiosity. I'm trying to understand where you're coming from. So just help me understand. They can't get through that. You might want to let it go if we're in public and then go back to them later. But you always want to show up, even if you're not feeling it, with that posture of an executive, even when you're not. Confidence is not perfection. Okay, it is not perfection. So many leaders, they'll delay visibility because they think they need more credentials. They think they need more certainty. They think they need more experience, more guarantees. But confidence does not require any of that. It just requires courage and practice. You got to step out, right? It's not about being fearless. Even strong leaders feel fear. Confidence is the willingness to move away from it. You don't need to be loud. You don't need to be overbearing. In fact, we hope you're not. You don't need to be aggressive, especially with some women, right? So sometimes women, especially if they're nervous, they may come across a little too strong. And so we get called aggressive, or we get called the bossy pants word, right? And men, they might be called assertive. But some of the strongest leaders in the room are calm, grounded, and really clear. And I've told you about this particular person in the past, but the CFO leader never flapped. Like he never got flapped, like never ruffled. I'm sure they did inside, but he never appeared on the outside. He was always just cool, calm, and collected. And he'd keep asking his questions. And if you didn't give him the answer he was looking for, he'd keep asking it. He'd ask it a different way. And then he'd ask it a different way. And he kept digging because he knew something ain't right here. Something ain't right. Doesn't feel right. Eventually give up if he couldn't get his answer. And then he'd get it, at a different conversation. He was so good, calm, cool, and collected. So I just want to talk a little bit about vulnerability. And this is where leadership often gets things wrong. Many of times leaders believe that showing uncertainty or asking for help or admitting challenges that might diminish trust, or it might, diminish your credibility or your reputation. But the truth is that it often strengthens trust, and it often helps the other person go, "Oh, I get it. They're human, right? They're not perfect." When I first started my coaching practice, one of my clients, I was having a rough day, and so I just told, "I'm sorry. This is what's going on with me, and I'm struggling." And she said, "Oh, thank God. I thought you were like this perfect person that had it all together. For you to tell me that you don't, that means a lot." And I never thought about that. I never thought about my coaching clients thinking that I've got it all together, because I'm coaching them on how to get better. And we're not sharing. Like, we're not, friends, right? It's not like it's my girlfriend. But that was a very important lesson for me. And I had to learn that lesson when I worked in corporate too. And it took me a while. And then when I reinvented myself outside of corporate, I had to learn it again. Authenticity, super important, right? Teams need authenticity. They need courage, and they need steadiness. So yes, we have our moments where we might be there. I want to go out into the car and scream to your best friend. Fine. Because your teams do need to see that you are even, you can still not, if there, and you explain really hard decisions that are, it's okay. I know this doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good for me either, but we need to do this for the company, for all of us and our family. This is what we need to do, right? They need steadiness, they need courage, but they also need authenticity. They don't need to be as a cast iron, individual. They need to know you're human. And Brown's work, she consistently reminds us that courage and vulnerability are deeply connected. You cannot lead courageously if you are unwilling to be seen. For many leaders, especially women, I talked about that. Visibility can feel kind of risky. Like, confidence is not, it's not hiding, it's showing up anyway. And so it can feel a little, I'm not sure. But it is so important. Big lesson I learned back in the day. It matters in leadership because if confidence is misunderstood, then leaders, we often stay too quiet when we shouldn't. We might over explain when we shouldn't. We might delay decisions, minimize contributions, and the worst of all, I don't know if it's the worst of all, but one that really drives me crazy is waiting for permission, right? Hesitation can impact how others perceive leadership readiness. Now, I'm not saying that when you're in a room and there's a decision that needs to be made, you need to make it now. We are all wired a little bit different when it comes to decision making, especially for those of you who know that I'm a big disc lady, right? I'm the disc lady, and so sometimes when we have C style leaders or S style leaders, they need to process, and they want to be sure that they've got all the information and that they're making a decision with eyes wide open. Where the D style leaders or the I style leaders sometimes make decisions straight from the gut. Okay, so here's the reality. People often assess confidence before they assess full capability. Might not be fair. But it's real. So here's what confidence. Confidence signals stability, readiness, trustworthiness, and executive presence. When leaders project uncertainty, teams often feel uncertain. We talked about that. When leaders project grounded confidence, teams often feel safer, like they're on the same team. So again, you're going through some tough times in the organization and your leader comes in all frazzled and really not prepared, maybe faces red because they're nervous, splotchy on the chest, whatever it might be, they have to give you, that's going to make you uneasy. So as a leader, we need to go into those conversations with confidence. Projecting confidence is what I'm saying. Projecting confidence, even if you don't feel it, right? But you're projecting confidence and authenticity. You're not excusing the way that your team is feeling, but you are listening and you are accepting it. My boss was fantastic at this when I was in corporate. When we had tough times, he was very good at projecting confidence, even though inside I'm sure it didn't feel great, but it was what we had to do. And when you project confidence to your teams, then they're like, okay, she's got it. Therefore, we're going to get it and we're going to do this together and we're going to get through this. Right? That's so, so very important. And it's very important for women, particularly in leadership. Many women are exceptionally capable, right? Conditioned, it's true. We've been conditioned to be grateful, to maybe avoid in our language a little bit. Wait until we're overqualified. And that can create a really dangerous pattern. I mean, I am case in point. Wait until overqualified. Yeah, that's me. I one time, I don't even know if I've told you guys this, but at one point, my boss called me into his office and he wanted to promote me to the vice president of sales. And I talked him out of it. That's how good in sales I was, is I talked him out of it, that I was not ready for it. And so at the end of the meeting, he's like, okay, so I guess you need to come back when you're ready, but you're not ready for this. So therefore, I thought you were, but you're talking me out of it. And you did a really good sales job at talking me out of it, right? I didn't think I was qualified. They hired a man in that position, and I absolutely worked circles around him. And that's when I realized, what? How silly of me. But I didn't have the confidence. I truly did not have the confidence. And I wish, looking back on that, I wish my boss would have said, Melissa, don't worry, I've got your back. If you don't feel you're ready, I think you're ready. If you don't feel you're ready, I will make sure that you don't fail. I wish he would have said that. So that's just a little tidbit on this podcast, that if you're in that position and you've got especially a woman who you know is going to do great things in your organization and it's time for her to fly and she doesn't feel ready, I need you to say that. I need you to say, you're ready, even if you don't think you are. And don't worry about it. I'm not going to let you fail. I have your back. I need you to say that because that's what she needs to hear. Right? Because we're competent. And confidence is often what moves capability. Just enough to speak first. Woo, that's a tough one. Women do that very well. We advocate very well for other people, do not advocate very well for ourselves. So confidence is also advocating for yourself. It's about being visible and being comfortable. It's also about risking discomfort. And that's why confidence building is strategic. Yeah, so here's how it grows. I think you're probably at this point interested to know that. So it's not, in my opinion, it's not something people are simply born with. Like, are there natural born leaders? Yeah, I guess there are. I still think that you have to hone that craft. And you could be, yes, you're the one that is naturally, when you've got a group of people together, you naturally kind of gravitate to the top and you lead, so everybody's letting you lead. Yes, I think that happens, but I don't think confidence comes with that. I don't think that that's something that we're simply born with. I think it grows, and it grows through preparation. It grows through practice, stretch opportunities, learning. And if I've got some folks here listening that are of a younger generation, I really want you to lean into stretch opportunities. Today's world, many of our young people think that if I'm going to do a stretch opportunity or a stretch project, something that's outside of my role, that I should be paid more money for it. I'm going to tell you something. That stretch opportunity that you do without to get you further than if you asked for money and they gave it to you and then you don't have any more stretch opportunities. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. So confidence grows through those things. It grows through preparation, practice, stretch opportunities, through learning, continuously learning and failing. So you've got to recover. It grows vulnerability, courage to step up, step first. And it's built every single time you have that hard conversation or you present an idea or you hold a boundary. Oh boy. Or you lead the meeting. Let's just say you weren't prepared. Your boss texts you. He's going to lead the meeting. I can't make it. I'm stuck in traffic. I got in an accident. My kids are sick, whatever it might be. I won't be there. I need you to lead the meeting. Are you ready? I hope so. I hope you can admit what you don't know. And I hope you can speak up before you feel you are fully ready. Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. So I want you to be thinking like this. This is kind of we're going to wrap up here, but I want you to be thinking about this. Instead of saying, do I feel confident? I want you to say, am I willing to trust myself enough to act courageously? Mm. See the difference? So you go into my meeting, okay? Like, let's just use me as an example. We go into my sales call. Do I feel confident? Mm, am I willing to trust myself enough to act courageously? Yeah, yeah, I am. Because whatever comes at me, I'm pretty sure I can get through it. And I'm going to be stronger on the other side because I learned a lesson there. I learned something out of that experience. And now I'm going to put it into my toolkit and I'm going to go forward and I'm going to continue to lean forward. But that's what I want you to think about. Am I willing to trust myself enough to act courageously? Life is all about first, right? When I first started this business 6 years ago, or let's see, yeah, 7 years ago, 7 years ago in August, 2.5 years ago, when I first started this business, tons of firsts. Now, since then, I've got a lot of seconds, I got a lot of thirds, I got a lot of fourths. I'm still having firsts, however, right? So I'm sure of it, still having firsts. So as you're doing these first experiences and you're building that confidence, don't think about, am I feeling confident right now? Because the answer might be no, I'm not. And then you're going to go in with a different mindset. But if you ask yourself, am I willing to trust myself enough to act courageously? Yeah, I, I think so. I think I can do this. In fact, I know I can do this. So I've got 3 takeaways from today's episode. Is self, is not ego. It's grounded, calm, cool, and collected leadership. Confidence includes vulnerability, right? Courage and confidence work together. And if you have any questions on Brene Brown is the absolute master. She can teach this master class on vulnerability and courage. And that is going to build your confidence. Confidence changes how people follow you because trust often begins with how you trust yourself. Let's say that again. Trust often begins with how you trust yourself. So let's just start right there as we're closing this podcast and as you're stopping Spotify or YouTube or wherever you're watching it, think about that. Where's my trust level with me on a scale of 1 to 5? One being, I don't know. Like, I don't know. And if it's anywhere less than a 3, then that's where you need to start. You need to start on trusting yourself. So, before we wrap, I just want to take one idea from today's episode and I'm going to leave you with this. Okay, we just talked about where you are with trust. Well, where are you in confidence? Where are you in showing up for me or for you right now? So, like, if I were to ask myself this question, where is confidence showing up for me right moment? And it's really this podcast. We started it almost a year ago, and it was the first for me. But I'm doing it. I'm showing up, and soon I'm going to be interviewing guests. So if you're interested in being a guest on my podcast, you can go to reach out to me, and we'll send you the application. Insight is so incredibly helpful, but leadership only changes when our behavior changes. So confidence isn't built on waiting. It's built through courageous action, practice, vulnerability, trusting yourself enough to lead before you're fully ready. And I know that's hard, but just step out. I work with leaders who are buried in the day to day, right? They're in the weeds, they're doing all the things. I help them simplify those things, get out of the weeds, and start running the business instead of the business running them. And if that sounds like where you are, you can learn more about working with me at graceandsaltleadership.com. And if this episode was helpful, I want you to share it with another leader who may need this reminder. Be sure to follow or unsubscribe so you don't miss what's next. And until next time, keep leading forward. I want you to keep leading. I want you to keep growing. And I'll meet you on the top floor.
Thanks so much for hanging out on the top floor. If today's episode gave you something to think about or a little boost, share it with your friends to keep the momentum going. And hey, if you're ready to rise, find your voice, and lead with clarity and confidence, we'd love to connect with you. Reach out at graceandsaltleadership.com to learn how Grace and Salt can support your growth. Remember, you don't have to lead like everyone else, just lead like you. All right, I'll see you next time on the top floor.